Okay, everybody, so we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is Jenna Nilo. I am the Director of Marketing and Outreach for Illinois Digital Educators Alliance. I'd like to thank you all for joining us today. Today we are going to do a webinar, one of our Wednesday webinars, with Class Intercom, one of our partners, and Taylor Siebert from Class Intercom. He's going to be discussing 5 steps to building a student social media team at your school. So in a minute, I'm going to turn things over to Taylor, but before we get to that, I just wanted to do a few housekeeping items. So number one, if you could please do me a favor and keep yourself muted throughout the presentation. That way Taylor will have the floor to himself and we won't have any background noise, so that would be fabulous. If you do have any questions throughout the presentation, we totally welcome questions. In fact, we love them. Just do me a favor, go ahead and put them in the chat, and I will be monitoring that back channel for Taylor. And as Taylor takes a breath, as he changes topics, whatever in between there, I will go ahead and interrupt Taylor and get those questions answered for you. So any questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat, and we will get those answered. Be sure to stay all the way till the end of today's presentation, because at the end of the presentation, also in the chat window, I will be including the link for the PDHs for today. So just keep an eye on that. The link will be available until midnight tonight. So go ahead, as soon as you see that, click in, go ahead, fill out the forms so that you can get your 1-hour PDH for today's presentation. And then tomorrow, I will be sending an email out to everybody who registered for today's webinar. And in that email, I will have a link to the slides that Taylor's presenting today, as well as a recording of the webinar today. So at any time, you'll be able to find that recording of the webinar on the Wednesday webinar page of our website. But with tomorrow's email, you'll get both the link to the slides and the recording as well. So I think that's it. Without further ado, I'm going to turn things over to Taylor. I'm going to mute myself and enjoy. If you have questions, please put them in the chat and I will let Taylor know. So thanks, Taylor. Your turn.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, Jenna. Everyone can hear me okay? Appreciate you guys jumping on. We had to take a moment here because everyone's kind of getting back into their routine as we hit the new year. And this is a great topic to kind of talk about, especially if you're working directly with students. So I wanted to start off before I get too deep into this. I would love to learn a little bit about who is attending. So if you guys want to use the chat, just so I can kind of peek over there, if you are teaching students, or if you're in a technology coach role, or if you're an administrator, I'd love for you to just put in the chat what kind of role you have in the school, which will give me kind of a good sense of maybe bringing up some additional stories or examples. I'm going to take you through the 5 steps, but it'd be great to get kind of a feel of our audience here today, which thank you guys. So a lot of communications, educator, principal. So we've got a great mix, which is one of the awesome things about IDEA is you guys are hitting, everyone's trying to learn how to use technology together. And something that we're really passionate about, Class Intercom, is getting students involved in creating social media content. And so before I get too deep into this, I just want to invite you guys into a conversation on social media. Please follow us. Anything you take from this today, the webinar today, you can tweet or put us on Instagram at Class Intercom, or use the hashtag content gen. Would love to start a conversation or something, maybe a question, anything like that. Would love to hear from you guys. That's what we do with social media, and so I wanted to invite you into that conversation. And if you search that hashtag, you'll see a lot of the schools that we work with and a lot of the content. We've got a lot of exciting things going on with Class Intercom. But our story actually began several years ago. We're located in Nebraska, actually, is where our headquarters are at. And we work with schools all across the country, and have been coming to Illinois and working with the schools there. But we discovered a pretty big problem several years ago in hosting a workshop with students, educators, administrators. And that problem is that students were wanting to create social media content for their school, but they didn't know how to do that safely. And so we literally had a group of 4 students from one of the schools we were working with come up to our co-founder, Ben, and say, hey, we're creating content on Instagram, Tumblr at the time, Twitter, Facebook on behalf of our school. And Ben's background is actually in banking and finance marketing and social media for banks. And he thought this was going to be really fun to learn how are these students actually posting to these platforms, because he knows from a banking standpoint, at a bank, a post has to be reviewed by sometimes 3, 4, maybe even 5 people before it actually gets posted. And so they built a software for that, which is the software Class Intercom does as well. And so he kind of had a great conversation with them, and he finally asked these 4 gals, how are you guys posting to the school's social media? What does that process and workflow look like? And they kind of looked at him funny, and they all held up their matching MacBook Air laptops, and they all had a sticky note on the laptop that literally had the username and password to the school's Twitter account. And so if you can imagine, nothing could go wrong, right? If that sticky note were to fall off and get a hold of the football team or the basketball team. No offense to any of the boys, but this principal had literally given them the sticky note. He had given them the trust and the authority to do that, and that's because he didn't know any other way. And so we went on this journey of discovering, wow, there's this problem with schools, specifically this administrator wanting to get students involved. I was providing and going across the country, providing a lot of education around this, but not thinking about what does that workflow and process look like. And that's the problem we're tackling today. But the things I'm going to talk about today can all be applied without our software, with or without it. And so it's going to be a lot of great examples and take you through the 5 steps. If you're a teacher, you're, communications department, you're a principal, all of those different types of folks, how you can kind of do this with students. And so these are the 5 steps to build a social media team of students. You could apply these same things to even some of them to your staff, if you're just wanting your staff to do better on social media. And so the first thing you need to consider is why. Why are you doing this? What is the purpose? Well, what the feedback we've gotten from schools, and we'll dive into this, is, schools are supposed to be educational. Social media, as my phone is blowing up here of alerts and different things like that happening on social media, text messaging. We need to be educating students on how to use these platforms, because it's a part of my life now. It's how I make a living, and a part of a lot of my friends' life and how they interact and connect and network with folks. And so you need to ask yourself, why is it important for students to learn how to create content for someone other than themselves? It's really easy to take a selfie as a student, but what does it look like for a student to create content for their school? And they're already doing that if they're in yearbook. And so that's why I wanted to see, is there any yearbook teachers, journalism, business teachers, folks like that? They're creating a lot of content, but they're not maybe putting it out publicly on behalf of the school. So we're going to dive into that. How do you find the right students? That's one of the biggest things we work with on schools, is trying to figure out who those students are that are going to be a part of the team. How to develop a content calendar, which a lot of businesses, agencies, I know IDEA does. I know Amber and Jenna, they've got a calendar because we've been working with them. They're planning way ahead on things, which is amazing. How can we teach students and even educators to think like that in terms of social media? What does that look like? How you can keep each other accountable, and what we've seen from schools and what works really well. And then how you can use Class Intercom to schedule and monitor these posts. We'll touch on that just briefly. So we'll go ahead and and get dived in here, why you should build a social media team of students. And one of the first things, and we've got a great story here, is to take a look at what does student generated content on social media look like. And we've got a great example of a school up in Wisconsin, Pulaski, Wisconsin, that has been using Class Intercom for just about a couple years now. And classic example of Clay Reisler, their advisor, walking in. They've got a club, which we're going to talk about. There's 3 kind of different groups that you can kind of have success with building this team. They've landed on the club model, and I'll get to what they're moving to next. But Clay walked into their classroom one day because he had this idea for maybe some students to create some anti-vaping social media posts, create a little campaign about back in the fall to help students understand the negative effects of vaping. And so he asked his group of students. They meet every Wednesday morning. Hey, who would like to go ahead and take on this project? So we kind of gave them an idea, and one student took it on and decided to do that. Little did they know on the left-hand side of this, and it's really hard to read, but that's not the point of this story, but the two posts on the left that are kind of black and white are two tweets that their principal, one of their administrators, had created about anti-vaping. And it says, "No vaping on school grounds. Want to know more? I want to know more about why you should not vape." And then a link to an article tagged the high school and then put their hashtag. And it has some word cloud on it. That tweet generated under 400 impressions, okay? So probably maybe didn't reach the audience that the administrator was intending. Then you take Clay and this student, who they didn't know the principal was kind of doing this. Clay and this student, Clay did not go to the student and say, "Hey, student, I would like you to find a meme of SpongeBob, and on the scroll that SpongeBob is holding, I want you to put 'vaping isn't cool,' and then I want you to write the copy for that and send that out using Class Intercom." Clay didn't do any of that. He literally just said, "Hey, here's this idea. Who wants to take it on?" And the student came up with all of that, which is an amazing, authentic learning opportunity for the student to think about how, if I'm a student, what do other students need to hear, and what would be fun and kind of engaging for students to learn about, vaping isn't cool, right? And how can I make an impact at my school and send this out? And little did this student know that this would generate now, it says 9,600 impressions. It's now over 10,000 impressions on their high school Twitter account. Do you think that made an impact at their school? Do you think kids saw that? Absolutely they did. Over 20 retweets, 60 likes. They did get a couple negative comments, which was a phenomenal exercise for them to go through and go, "Hey, what caused this? Some students aren't taking this seriously. Hey, let's have a conversation about it." They did another one, and between the two tweets that the student created, generated over 14,000 impressions at a high school in Pulaski, Wisconsin, about an hour west of Green Bay. And the principal's two tweets, under 1,000 impressions. The story gets even better because this group of students in the social media club and Clay Reisler, their advisor, who's a technology integration specialist there, who's leading this, had a chance this fall, a couple months ago, and that's why they generated this graphic. They had a chance to go talk to 4 administrators and pitch to those administrators on why their high school should have a social media class that meets regularly instead of a club. And they created this graphic to show the impact and the power of adult content versus student-generated content and looking at the stats. And what was funny that happened in that room was the 3 administrators knew the one administrator that had created the word cloud with that, and they kind of started snickering and laughing at him going, "Wow, dude, you're not really that great at social media compared to these kids." And they had a lot of fun kind of jabbing at him and going back and forth. But this is what it looks like when you can empower students with the right tools and the right kind of themes and ideas. They have the capability of creating some really purposeful and meaningful content. And that's why I am on a mission to go across the country and work with organizations like IDEA to promote this idea of what it looks like for students. But there's a lot of things that have to happen to get to a student creating a meme like this and sending it out. It doesn't just happen at the snap of fingers or giving them a tool like Class Intercom. It's not realistic. Asking students to create content like this is something they've never done before. But the learning opportunities are so amazing because layered in this is digital citizenship. Because guess what? When those couple students responded negatively to that, the group of social media club students got to have a conversation of going, "Wow, that's not something I want to have, posted on my social media of responding that way." And they got to think about, from the school perspective, how should we respond to this? And they decided to not respond to it. They took screenshots of it to document it. And they had a great conversation, and the student had a great conversation with the advisor about, hey, how should we handle this negative comment on social media? And to me, that's phenomenal learning opportunity in the digital citizenship space, and even goes into the leadership space. They had another story that happened. A student created a video, and the video contained some music. And one of the leaders of the group noticed that the song that was used in the video was not a song that they had purchased or had rights to. And so there was a copyright infringement if they were to have posted that video, which lots of accounts, a couple years ago or last year, I think some college football accounts got their Twitter account suspended because they were using, they didn't have the right license to the music using in their videos and stuff like that. The student saw that and denied the post. Clay, the adult, didn't even know this was happening until the student came up and said, hey, I wanted you to let you know that a video was coming through. I noticed the music we didn't have the rights to it, and so I didn't let the post go through. How cool is that? That's what we're talking about when we're talking about digital citizenship, digital leadership, and just leadership, being a good person in general. What we've also found is just the communication piece. Students communicating, they're using Slack. If you're not familiar with Slack, it's one of the most popular startup business communication tools. I have about 4 Slack channels going right now that we're communicating as we're remote. It's kind of like, instant messenger on steroids, if you guys remember that. And so the communication piece is amazing because they're communicating with each other. They can communicate inside a class intercom on working together on posts, and then the whole team aspect. These students at Pulaski and the schools across the country that are adopting this idea of having a student social media team are treating it just like their sports teams. They've got a leader, they've got a captain, they have people that are really good at maybe designing graphics or doing video. They're skilled in these different areas, or maybe writing, and they're focusing on those and really truly building a team, which is really cool. And then the last is the time management, which I did not learn until I got into my junior or senior year of college. I finally figured it out. Oh yeah, I don't have class till 1. I probably should be doing something instead of sleeping until noon before class. And so these students are learning. The feedback we've gotten from them is saying, hey, I didn't realize, thinking about my audience, the parents, the grandparents, the alumni that are following our page, when they want to be consuming this content, what time I should be posting, how much time it takes to create a piece of content for your school. And so really neat things on the learning opportunities that this is providing students, let alone just the social media piece. Just those 5 things right there, I think, are some incredible soft skills that I know as an employer I'm looking for in employees and future career-ready students. How do you find the right students? So this is one of the most difficult things to try to figure out, is which students are going to be the right fit for the team. And so these are kind of 5 things to kind of look for when you're putting that team together. Obviously, I mentioned there's 3 different ways to model your team. The best way is if you have a class, because then you see them every day or 3-4 times a week, and you're giving them dedicated time to create content. The club model is great if you can't get a class where you're meeting maybe weekly or every other week. For sure, have a communication tool, whether it's Remind, Slack, Google Classroom, Google Drive, whatever it is, to communicate with them, to assign posts, which we'll get to in a little bit. And then an internship. So if you have an internship program at your school where students are maybe going outside the building to do an internship, reverse that and have them do an internship inside your school and create content for your school, and then they have a dedicated amount of time to do that. If you're asking students, we've seen this maybe they're on student council or leadership group, and you're not meeting with them and talking about the content you want to be creating, this is going to fail, because they're not going to be held accountable. They're not going to have ownership. It's just going to be one more thing kind of added to their list, being a part of student council or whatever. And we've seen that fail. And so you've got to have those 3. And I have that on a different slide. I forgot to include that, but you've got to have a class, club, or internship. You've got to have structure. We all know that with students, they're told where to go every day, 8 times a day, right? With 8 periods or however many at work, however many you have at your school. But they need that structure. And then create within that box and within that framework that you give them. Don't tell them what to create, but give them the ideas and then let them create within that. Sorry, I went on a tangent there a little bit. But how do you find the right students? So recruit students who inspire others, find some leaders, find some people, that maybe are creating some content, identify those student leaders who, have maybe a good following on Instagram or Twitter. I just talked to a group of students out in Laguna Beach in California this last week and was inspired by them. They wanted to be on their social media team because they don't get a lot of student engagement they don't get a lot of students coming to their events. And they want to use social media to promote what these students are missing out on by not being at these soccer games and basketball games and things like that. They want to promote the events and then celebrate them, which came from a principal in outside of Rockford, Illinois, that just started using Glass Intercom. He's like, I want to promote the events that are happening and then I want to celebrate them. And so find those students that are, want to inspire other people, get involved in creating a great culture for your school. Add diversity. So what that means is, at the word diversity, you want to have a diverse group of students that have different perspectives and different thoughts on things for sure. But also one of the activities we do with students is going to the whiteboard, which I do every time I talk to students, and have them list out all the different activities they're involved in at the school: sports, non-athletics and activities, extracurricular activities. What are all the things they're involved in? And a group of 4 students can come up with maybe 20 to 30 activities they're all involved in, which gives them a very diverse view of the school. And so thinking about their team, hey, I'm on the cheerleading team. Well, I'm going to a lot of these games. I could snap a photo and show, the final score of the game, since I'm already going to be at the game. Or, hey, I'm playing on the court. I'm playing basketball, but I would love to create the promotional graphic that I could schedule out to go out before that event. And so looking at that list of events and making sure you're covering lots of different areas of your school, so you don't have, 4 basketball players and all they're talking about is basketball on their student social media team. No one's going to want to follow that because you're not talking about the things they're involved in. That goes with starting small. This group of students at Pulaski, you see the class here that's kind of in the faded in the background. This is at school in Nashville, Tennessee. They actually have a class, and I'll mention them here in a little bit. But if it's a club, 5 to 10 students is a great place. If you've got 2, that's totally fine. At least start with something, but it's really hard. And we've got a couple schools that have done it because it's in a class, but adding 50 to 100 students is really difficult to manage that much content to start. But the great thing about our platform is we're unlimited users. So you can add as many users as you want, but if you have a team, it's really key to start small with that and let it grow. And then the last is to give them ownership. And so we've got a great slide. This is a cool little hack, if you will, or something we discovered that we were like, wow, I didn't realize this would, have that much of an effect on giving students ownership. And that's giving them a little student press pass, a little badge, whether it gets them into the game for free, or the biggest thing is when they're walking around the school and principals then know, teachers know, and students know they're a part of the social media team. And so we'll give them Class Intercom lanyards. You can see the button there. They've got their name on it, the school, some cool branding stuff. And everybody knows they have permission to have their phone out to document and share stories that are happening at the school. And that's a big deal to a lot of students. It gives them some ownership, gives them some, they get excited about that because, they have a privilege. Some students may not have that opportunity to have a cell phone out, taking pictures and shooting video and doing all this fun stuff on social media, but they do. And so on the back of the ones in the middle there, the Seward with the little blue jay, they actually put on the back a bunch of different hashtags and even other Twitter accounts they should be tagging on there. So they utilize that back part too. And so that was a really fun thing to learn from our schools that you could take to kind of give some ownership to those students. And again, if you've got a journalism yearbook class, you probably already have those. But so, social media, creating social media content is just a little bit different than those classes. Then creating a content calendar, what does that look like? The best thing about creating a content calendar is it gives that structure and that framework I was talking about with students. Handing over a Class Intercom or handing over a Twitter account to a student and just expecting them to know what to talk about and to say. I literally had a school in New Jersey today say, we're having some trouble getting students to send out a tweet or tweet something in a social media class. And I said, we can absolutely help with that, because this is how you get around that, is creating a content calendar. What do you want to talk about? What do you want to focus on? And figuring out some themes and some direction for the content. Having just a blanket open space to create content for students, when this is something they've never done before on behalf of their school, is really daunting task and puts a lot of pressure on them. So start with your academic calendar, start with your sports calendar, and create, a tweet saying, hey, this is when the game's upcoming. Create a graphic in Canva and schedule it to go out. That's the easiest way to get students to understand how to create content. And then you can grow from there. You can start to do more celebration content at events and school spirit, culture type of things, student spotlights or teacher spotlights, but finding those themes. And we've got some great examples on our blog, which I'll share with you here in a little bit, on our webinars page. We've got lots of different resources. The best is a school here in Nebraska that does a pie face showdown. And so every Friday, a student videotapes all fall. They had 2 teachers doing the pie face game, where they slap the little hands, and whoever doesn't slap hard enough or fast enough gets pie shoved in their face. And she just set up her iPad and filmed 2 teachers doing this, and the student body absolutely ate it up, like getting thousands of views on their Twitter account. And they sent it out. That was something they set out to do every Friday. And then they started asking their audience, saying, hey, who should we feature next? And it turned into like an NCAA March Madness tournament, and they had a championship right before Christmas that they filmed and released. And now I just saw today, they're doing students now. Now students are doing the game. And the girl that came up with this idea was given the opportunity, the space to create that, saying, hey, what's something fun we could do? She loves Jimmy Fallon and loves the games they always play. And she thought, hey, this would be really cool. It's a fun video. It's not very long. People want to watch it all the way through, and that gets plugged into their content calendar, and they know every Friday they're going to have this video. And then they promote it with a graphic on Wednesday, and they've just built that into their content calendar. Another one they do is Throwback Thursday. Every school in the country should be doing a Throwback Thursday post. So if you have yearbooks, old yearbooks at your school, go dust them off, give them to a student. And we've seen this at Pulaski does this, Aurora, lots of other schools do this. And it's a great learning opportunity for your students to go back and look at the history of your school, right? And to learn. And so they start in the 70s and move their way up. And every week, like you could have a post go out every week, even through the summer, of Throwback Thursday, right? And taking a picture from the yearbook and engaging alumni, getting a conversation started. They work really well on Facebook because former students and alumni will tag other people going, do you remember when we won that state championship? So you can plug that into your content calendar, all right? And there's 3 posts for the week, right? So your Throwback Thursday, you've got your promotional post for the Pie Face Showdown, you've got your Pie Face Showdown video. So there's 3 pieces of content. When you start to break down the layers of that for students, they start to wrap their head around it, and they can build that in and really excel and do some really neat things. And so one of the things you can do, use what schools have done, is creating a spreadsheet and just assigning it to students with the dates and content ideas. We have a content view in Class Intercom, but a lot of schools have built just a Google Sheet, put the dates of the events, and then put the person's name next to that. And that's been a great way for a lot of schools and students to kind of wrap their head around, so they know, hey, I don't have to do these events, but I know I've got to be at X, Y, and Z. And that really helps them, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, keep them accountable as well. And then you even have this where you're breaking it down, which shout out to Steph Lonick at Thayer Central Schools. And she's even breaking it down to, here's our Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then breaking it down per platform, okay? So here's what we want to be doing on Facebook, which is going to be different than our Twitter, and our Instagram is definitely different. This is something we're trying to push to schools, that you probably maybe don't need to send out the same message to all 3 platforms, because you probably have different audiences on each one. which is kind of going next level on social media strategy and kind of thinking about that. But if you're in communications and school PR, you need to be thinking about your Facebook audience, and people who like your Facebook page are probably much different than your Twitter audience. So don't not do Twitter, but just figure out what works really well on Twitter. It might be doing more score updates on Twitter, whereas Facebook, the algorithm works completely different than Twitter. And Instagram, we know, needs to be students' faces and fun videos, different things like that, putting stuff up on your story, doing fun things in the story. And so those platforms are definitely different. And so she's broken this down to kind of give them a visual of going, oh yeah, this is more Twitter type content. And there's going to be cases where, you know, we want to post something out, especially here in Nebraska, we had a snow day, right? You need to get that out ASAP everywhere. But thinking about the different photos and different things happening in your school, you can kind of have some fun thinking about the different platforms and how you're, you know, you can look at the analytics and look at even the ages. You can see, okay, I know on Instagram I've got a younger demographic consuming this content compared to Twitter. Okay, well, I need to be a little bit more hip maybe on Instagram than I do on Twitter, or whatever. You know, look at your audience. You can look at all those stats on those platforms to help you figure out the types of content you want to post. Here's another great example of Seward here, who I'm going to share a great story from here in a second, of their posts. So they've got their Throwback Thursdays every week. That's assigned to a specific person. They even got their sports locations on there and dates. And so they just had a running tab on a Google Sheet here of, you know, who's assigned to what. And what was really cool was one of their students, Becca Klinke, was their kind of social media director. She actually would kind of call out students if they didn't, you know, perform or post something. And we'll talk about that in the accountability section here in a little bit. But what happens is when you create a content calendar, you've got themes and you've got things established, you start to see some things that are really cool that happen. And Seward, this example here, this tweet, they started doing a Who Knew Wednesday, which was featuring a student. You can totally steal this idea if you're watching here. You can totally steal this. And they started featuring students and saying, did you know this about this student? And they did it every Wednesday. I'm not sure if they still do it or not, but they feature this student, JJ, one day on a Wednesday last year. I think it was last spring or winter. And JJ has worn a Kansas City Royals t-shirt to school every day since 2013 when he was in 6th grade. I think he's a senior now. So he was a sophomore at the time they posted this, or he might be a junior this year. Well, they tagged the Royals. This is something you do every Wednesday. They tagged the Royals in the tweet, and guess what happened? The Royals quote tweeted it and said, "True blue through and through. Hey, how would you like to wear one of those t-shirts to a game on us this season?" And he, you know, this made his world, made his life. I got to hear him share this story and said, you know, this was his 15 minutes of fame. I think the Royals gave him tickets to 3 games this summer. And so that's what happens when you have a content calendar and you're consistent. I'm not saying your post is going to go viral like this, but some really neat things happen when you stay in line with, you know, being consistent and being authentic and sharing stories. The screenshot on the right was incredible. Last February, we had a huge snowstorm come through Nebraska, yet all the track athletes still had to go out and do track, right? And so they caught a picture of all of their track athletes out scooping the snow. She edited the photo in class Intercom and just put track practice at Nebraska. This is Jill Johnson, their assistant principal who runs their social media. And for some reason, everybody in the country wanted to share this. They thought this was the best thing ever, laughing at it, loving it. And it reached almost 250,000 people on Facebook. And they're a decent sized school here in Nebraska. But again, not intending for this post to go viral. 31,000 engagements, over 15,000 reactions. Like everybody in Texas, I think, saw this and thought, man, you guys are crazy up there, up north. And so it was really fun to get that screenshot from them and going, hey, we were just doing what we normally do, and it just happened to go viral. And so this is what happens when you kind of again, be consistent with that, feature students, and things like that. The next thing to think about when you're working with students especially is having some brand guidelines. You know, what are the fonts we're using? What are the colors? Because again, students haven't done this before. And so asking them to create content, you're going to get a lot of variety. Work with a school that's working with some 6th graders right now. And I went to go talk to them in Iowa a couple weeks ago, and they're all over the place. If you teach 6th graders, I have a 2nd grader, I know how his mind works, but you've got to give them some consistent things to kind of go, hey, here's the font we're using, here's the colors we're using, here's the official school logo. And so what you need to do is create a design template. This was actually created by one of our schools by a student, where they created this, and she's then kind of policing their social media team, is actually calling them out going, hey, did you remember to put our Nor'Wester font, or did you use the right color of red? Did you put the right color or transparency on the photo? She's actually kind of calling them out, which is, again, leadership, right? And so she made this in Canva and printed it out and shared it with the whole team. And they were able to, you know, be more consistent now with their social media because of this. And the best part is the teacher didn't show her how to create a design template. I actually did a webinar with them in December and talked about it. She goes, yeah, I just kind of created from scratch. I don't like looking at other people's designs. And so that's amazing. I mean, she's not necessarily a graphic designer, but she kind of is falling into that, which is really fun to see. So this is another screenshot too of creating that brand guideline from that content calendar view. These are some more specific things when you're breaking down the different platforms that she created for Facebook, more aimed towards adults. So again, this is all helping students to understand some of these platforms. They don't view social media like this from a marketing standpoint or from a school standpoint. So you need to give them an understanding of, hey, here's what works on Facebook. Here's what we know works on Twitter. We know you kind of get Instagram, but there are some other platforms that we're getting some really great engagement. We need to communicate out to our parents. And we need you guys to learn how to do that. Because the reality is there's lots of jobs now that require this. I know IDEA has someone on their team that's creating social media content. That's a job. And so we need to start teaching students how to do that same thing so that they're prepared for that. And that's one of the missions of Class Intercom. So this is a great, I'll stay on this. Again, the slides will be shared so you can take a look at this and steal this for your own school, because this is a great screenshot and helpful when you're getting students involved, or maybe you're just trying to get your staff involved and going, guys, not every score needs to be posted on Facebook. And not everything needs to be posted on your Instagram feed. There's stories now where they live for 24 hours, like little things like that you can kind of help these people that you're asking to create content that maybe haven't done it before. And then the accountability piece. So one of the things is to create some goals. And so this is kind of a mess of a whiteboard, but this is up in Pulaski. And so they've got some goals set out. They want to make their school look popular and good. They want to promote the positives. They want to feature people. So they do a lot of things around that. You can tell in their content that's reflective on that. And then they've got their names up there. They've got different assignments, you know, who's in charge of boys golf. They've got someone's name on that. And what happens is every Wednesday when they come in the room, they see their name attached to that, and it helps them keep them accountable. And we've got lots of stories like that where, you know, students are then able to, just like in sports, or, you know, if you're doing a team project in science or math and someone doesn't do their job, they need to be held accountable. And so this is a great way to do that. Now, you know, if the Throwback Thursday post doesn't get put up one week, everyone's going to kind of know that and see that. And you're going to have to ask that person, hey, what happened? How can I help you with that? How can I keep you accountable to make sure we get that out every week? Because our audience really enjoys that. And then you've got great stories like this with Carter here next to me. I kind of blend in there, try to be a student sometime. But Carter there with the O on his hoodie there is a great example of a student that was discovered through a social media internship at Lewis Central in Iowa. And now he's even kind of, he's at the stage now, he's a senior, he's trying to decide where he wants to go to college. And because of the content he's been creating for the school, he's actually looking at different sports and athletic football programs to create content for. And so kind of has opened up his world, and he creates a little hype up video. You can go and follow or check out Lewis Central. You can see all their fun content, a lot of sports driven stuff, but they're creating that. He's creating that through Class Intercom, and Josh, the tech integration and school PR person, is approving that. And then they give him credit here. So he's building up a phenomenal portfolio to be able to showcase and go to a college or, journalism department at a college or a future employer and go, hey, here's all the stuff I created in high school for my school. Looks a lot better than if you were to share, hey, this is all the stuff that's on my personal profile that I kind of created for fun. The school gives you that platform and that, professionalism that maybe some people are looking for. And so he's done a lot of cool things. I won't click on these. You guys can check these out. This one's really cool for the home volleyball game. A video kind of slides out, and they're promoting the time and who they play and putting their hashtag and all that fun stuff. And then you've got Clay promoting his kids because, again, it goes back to there's some potential jobs and careers out there. And so this kid, I think now, is doing an internship for some, semi-professional team or something like that because he just fell in love with creating graphics. And he created this amazing wrestling graphic with a ton of detail, put together the tweet, and Clay quotes it on Twitter and just says, hey, hire this kid. He's unbelievable, incredible talent, amazing. When you give students this opportunity and the students get, tagged in it, they get a sense of professionalism and real world, real life, authentic learning opportunity for them. So then the last piece is just how you piece this all together inside Class Intercom. Again, if you want to reach out, I'll share my contact information to kind of get a full grasp of how the tool works. But basically, students can go in and create the content, but it has to be moderated and it can be edited. You have full control over that content before it actually gets published. But students are able to collaborate together, work together on these posts, but nothing can be published without your approval as a moderator. And then you're able to schedule it to go out in advance. I talked a lot about that, and monitor that content and give them a real feel of what it looks like to create content for a real brand and treat your school like that. And you can have a lot of fun. So I'm also going to send Jenna, I forgot to send this to you, so I will when we're done here, is we have a guide. We have a guide to basically everything I went through. If you want it just in one single document, I will be sending that out to you so you can look that over and just kind of be helpful for you when the timing is right, when you want to get students involved. If you want to partner with us, we'd love that. And if you want to do it on your own, we would still love that, because I truly believe this is a game changer for students to be able to have this experience in school, whatever way you figure out how to do it, whatever is best fit for your school, at least give them the opportunity. So you can follow this guide and it will help you kind of get that team built and have a lot of fun creating content and sharing your school story. So check your inbox from Jenna. Jenna will send you that PDF. And again, you can contact or reach out to us at Class Intercom, #ContentGen. Hit up our website, classintercom.com. My email is taylor@classintercom.com. And then I did want to reference to a great resource is just to go to our blog. So we've got a great blog that we put out last summer with, if you're looking for more on how to create that content calendar, go search our blog, Back to School, or go up to the resources and go to the blog section. We also just released and introduced a new YouTube show that actually is built specifically for students from an actual former Class Intercom student, Mitch Fisher here. So he did a little trailer, and starting next Wednesday, every other Wednesday, we're going to be releasing this show. It's built for the schools we work with, but you can come on our site and watch it. We're going to feature students, other creatives, schools that are doing a great job on social media. So I wanted to promote that. And, if you're looking for resources for your kids or a teacher to plug into the classroom, please hit up our resources section of our website it's built for you guys and a lot of school spotlights and things like that. So if there aren't any questions in the chat, I don't see any since a while back, but would love to open it up for questions here. I think I've got like a minute or so. And otherwise, I'll pass it over to Jenna. And to close it out, we've got a couple of closing slides. Any questions? So much to take in.
So Taylor,
yeah.
we have from Troy, should a school try to keep up with updated social media outlets, Snapchat, TikTok, etc.?
Yeah.
How much is too much,
so,
I guess?
Yep, we've had a lot of schools, and I'm getting a couple questions, so I'll answer those. We've had a lot of schools at least get the Snapchat account with their school name. But honestly, Snapchat hasn't done super well for schools from what we've noticed. We can't connect to it on our platform. We just connect to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn, the big four. We've had a lot of schools talking about TikTok. We did a webinar and kind of address some of the concerns we have with TikTok. There's some big time privacy concerns with TikTok. If you haven't looked at the news or anything like that, obviously every middle school kid is just loving that platform and having a lot of fun. But there's some major concerns from a privacy standpoint because of other governments having a watch on that. I won't comment on that more, but you can Google that. So I would right now we're focused on the big four of if your school is not on LinkedIn, I would highly consider that. LinkedIn's a really cool platform. For sure, Instagram. Some schools are starting to understand where they kind of fit in with Instagram. Having students involved helps a ton. But yeah, hopefully that helps. Is that what the question was? Jenna?
Sounded like it to me.
Okay. Yes, so we're doing 2 sessions. Ben's doing one on just kind of how social media broke the internet from an IT tech director standpoint. And
so just what Taylor's referring to, everybody, in case you're not looking at the chat, is his sessions that he's presenting or that Class Intercom is presenting at our conference coming up at the end of February, IdeaCon. So if you haven't registered, please go ahead and do so. So Taylor, what sessions are you presenting?
Yes, thank you. Yep, so we're excited to be there and partner with you guys on that. So Ben, the co-founder of Class Intercom with me, is doing one kind of geared towards IT directors, the tech directors of the world, around how social media broke the internet. So from a safety, security standpoint, archiving, all of that kind of nerdy, fun stuff. And then I'm going to be doing one on the hidden opportunity of student-generated social. So a lot of the things we talked about, but with just kind of going a little bit deeper into building a student social media team and the hidden opportunity, kind of highlighting that of student-generated social. So those will be the 2 sessions. I got another message saying, is this ever for elementary? Absolutely. We've got several elementaries using this and middle school, not from a student perspective necessarily. Some are. You'll need parental consent because they're under the age of 13, even though they're not directly connected to the social media apps. That's our privacy policy, which you can find on our website. But from a staff perspective, a lot of elementary schools, so Worth 127 is using it right now for their staff, just to curate content in multiple buildings. So that's where we see a lot of the elementary schools. But you can check out our blog. We have several middle schools getting students engaged in creating content, which has been a lot of fun. Cool, great questions. Thank you guys.
Did you discuss SOPA laws, it says? We have not.
Is that a message to you? Yeah. Which law?
Oh, I'm sorry, it is directly to me. Oh. No. So KLS Pierce, no, we did not discuss SOPA laws, SOPPA laws.
Yeah, I'm not from, what is that one?
I'm unfamiliar as well, I hate to
Okay.
say.
Cool, I'll hand it back over to you, Jenna.
Okay, fantastic. So if you can go to the next slide.
Yep.
There you go. Amber says we will have sessions on SOPA at IdeaCon.
Oh, okay.
So there you go. Okay. So look for those sessions. If you go to our Sched, so you can go to IdeaIllinois/IdeaCon. You'll find all the information on our conference coming up. In there is a link to our sessions, so it'll link you directly to our Sched, and you can look directly for those sessions on that. So I apologize that I didn't know what that was yet, but yes, upcoming laws for student privacy. So those will be, we do have sessions on that, yes. So besides IdeaCon coming up, I also wanted to let everybody know if you'd like to take advantage of this fabulous opportunity that we have coming up, starting next week, actually, the 28th, we are doing a book study on the book Teach Boldly, using EdTech for social good, and we're doing this book study directly with Jennifer Williams, the author of the book. So she is working with our Director of Professional Learning to put together a whole content on this book study. It will be online. There'll be online sessions for 4 weeks. Then there'll be a Twitter session after that, and then we're actually doing a meet and greet session at IdeaCon as well. So if you register for this book study, it is a free professional development opportunity. Unfortunately, the book is not free, but if you do register with us for that book study, we will email you back a discount code to purchase that book in time for the book study. So please go ahead and take a look at that. Information is at bit.ly/bold-book-study. And you probably should have gotten an email on that today as well. And then we do have webinars. Taylor, if you could go to the next one.
Yep.
Thanks. We do have additional webinars scheduled coming up, but what I did want to point out to you is that we do have a page on our website for our Wednesday webinars, and as I mentioned at the beginning of the session today, we post all of the recordings from the webinars on that page every day or the day after the session. So you'll find this recording and then others, and then at the bottom of that page is also upcoming ones. So you can always take a look there. You will get an email tomorrow. We do have one more session scheduled with class Intercom. I think it's February 5th. I should have given you a card on that one today too, Taylor. But this one's going to be on podcasting. So if you're interested in bringing podcasting to your school, go ahead, click that link when you get the email tomorrow, and it will include, then you'll be registered for that one on February 5th. Otherwise, always go look at that Wednesday webinar page of our website for more upcoming sessions. And I think that was it. Did we have one more? Nope, I think that was it. So I want to thank everybody. I am going to paste right now in the window, the chat window, the link for PDHs. So it is coming through right now. So go ahead and click that link and again, fill out that form. It's going to be available until midnight tonight. And you will get your 1 PDH for today's session. So it doesn't look like we have any other questions. Taylor, as always, this was awesome information. I will look for that email from you with the media guidelines so I can add that to tomorrow's email. Okay. And other than that, thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. Thanks for the time. Taylor, awesome as always, and we'll talk in, what is it, 2 weeks, I think? 2, 3 weeks, something like that.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Yep,
yeah, we'll hang out in case there are any
little.
other questions. We'll hang out for a few minutes.
Thanks.
Thanks.